How did you find that, David? Good to get the win, but it was quite nervy at the end with the score.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think our best bits were really high tonight. I think the level that we got to at certain points, we challenged the players to play a little bit different. We set the shape up a little bit different. We're doing that deliberately because we've got to put the players in scenarios where they've got to think differently at different points tactically. We wanted to start the game with Robbie and Zach a little bit closer to each other. That worked quite well in the first 25 seconds. Yeah. But obviously with Zach coming off quite quickly, then you lose that opportunity to see that relationship developing just a little bit longer. So, but we still maintained the same sort of shape, and again I think that caused them some problems. I don't think we realised how to cope with spaces we were trying to get into. I thought Charlie and Mackenzie tended to allow the others to go and flourish higher up the pitch. We got Kane into positions that caused them real problems, and him in the front foot driving with the ball is a massive strength, and that caused them some issues in the back line. Our goals were excellent, but then the biggest bit we've got to challenge the players on, we spoke about this before, the gap between our best and the bit at the bottom where we're turning the ball over a little bit loosely under not really great pressure. That gap needs to close. We need to tighten that a little bit, but we're aware of that. We're challenging them on that, and we'll keep pushing that to get to that level that we believe is right for these guys to get to.
You're talking about Zach. There are obviously a lot of supporters probably came down with a view of watching him, seeing what he's about. Impressive little cameo he came off. How is he, and what do you make of the time he spent on the pitch?
I think the impact is there to be seen. You know, but I think it's important as well that Robbie, you played a huge part in that goal because the pressure is put on the Kilbride player at that time. But you can see Zach's ability in the box, the calmness on what was a difficult angle to pass the ball in. Other than that, as I said, I think he shows that he's got a willingness to work, which is important in that area of the pitch. He's aware of spaces that we want to try and get him into. It's a slightly different position he's probably accustomed to playing, but it's one that we need to develop him to understand slightly different roles because we played differently from what he had previously. Yeah. But in terms of what he is as a person, he's open, he's asking questions, he wants to learn, he's really receptive, so that's a lot of good traits to have as a young player coming in a different country and in a different club and playing in a different style.
And is he okay? He obviously came off, he was walking over at half time.
Just an irritation in his knee, so he's quite quick to tell me at half time he'll be okay, he's fine. He just felt it was something that was uncomfortable, and given that he's just joined, it's not something we want to exaggerate too much further than what it was.
Okay. He talks about that kind of gap there between obviously being at our best and then being at the worst as a team. The first half I think was this Rangers B team at its best. I think the football was really free flowing. You must have been really delighted with that. Going into the second half, Kilbride offered a wee bit more and caused a wee bit more problems defensively. What's the kind of message to the players going forward about how they can deal with that in the future?
I think momentum's key, and I think when you look at the start of the second half, we knew they would come out in a different way. They knew trying to have a go at us, which is normal when you're 3-1 down, and particularly when they get the goal just before half time. But you look at the man of the goals, the first goal comes from a turnover in the middle of the pitch. We play a square pass, they jump on it, they get a penalty kick within seconds. So that's something, it's the pass that was unforced, we didn't need that to happen. So it's not necessarily a team issue per se, but momentum's key. And if we give cheap turnovers at areas of the pitch, particularly when they start to break down the middle of our defence, then it's unforced, it's self-inflicted to a certain degree. So it's just that decision, and if that decision is what you're going to go with, then the quality needs to be there to back up at the same time. But they have got the quality, so that's not the issue. It's the focus, it's the concentration, and recognition of what's right for the moment of the game. Just 4-1 up, and then I think Charlie, who's again as secure as MD within the team in terms of dealing with the ball under pressure, he tries to check out, they jump on it and they score it that goes 4-2. So the game, it's momentum, it's key. And any team, when you score a goal and actually get on the front foot, you start to make one or two different decisions, become loose in possession, and the game actually becomes a bit different. So as I said to you, it's not necessarily the bit that it's individual situations that we need to tighten up, and that's ones that we can talk about. We were punished, but there's other ones. We spoke after the civil service game. Again, we had a lot of good play in the civil service game. I think 70% possession, which is high, but with nothing at the end of it. There wasn't a lot of threat in the final third. But we spoke after that game about loose turnovers, because that still brings us problems that we can avoid and we don't need. So that's a challenge that we'll continue to work with the players at. You can see there's still players from last season, but there's other players that are coming from different areas, and we have to try and challenge us as coaches and the players to try and get to a level that's reflective of the ability they do have, but be more consistent.
Just on one of the individual players, Kane, Richie Hosler, I think you might agree was really, really impressive tonight. He's obviously a player who's played multiple different positions for the B team. Playing a wee bit further forward, he was really direct. How pleased were you with that, and is that something we're probably going to see more of going forward?
I was delighted with Kane. I thought Kane was excellent tonight. Kane's situation at the moment, he's with the group just now. He may not go on loan, and that's something that we'll watch that develop over a period of time. But if we go on at the weekend, last Friday, I thought he was very good at right back. In this area of the pitch tonight, he probably got a lot more opportunities to go and attack centrally, and as I say, in terms of the way he dribbles with the ball and commits players, he's as good as MD we've got in this group just now that does that, and then plays around about that pressure. So He had a strong performance tonight, and that's one of the ones we certainly spoke about, and it's important, as mentioned, I'm glad you picked it up, and not necessarily coming from me as well.
How delicate is that situation with over the next month or so, that deciding whether to send somebody out on loan or whether to keep them playing Lowland League and in-house?
I think every situation is individual. I think that there'll be some players it's right for them to go on loan. Some have already done that, as you know. Other players, you've got different. It's all about getting the right club as well. It's not just about putting somebody on loan and maybe the club and him not necessarily the best fit. So that's something, again, I'm pleased to say is not my decision. That's a conversation that will go out with me. So they can ask me questions on it, but in terms of the decision where it happens, then pleased to see that will sit with Craig and Ross, etc. for where that will sit.
I was going to say, because the rules obviously this year for Rangers, Celtic and Hearts is the Scottish players have got to be playing. Does that then make it, for boys like Richie who came from England, does that make it more likely that they might go out? Or?
Again, not necessarily spoke about that as a direct reason for that to be the case.
Yeah.
There'll be different reasons why they'll stay in and stay out, but absolutely it'll be a challenge when you're picking a team. You look at tonight, you've got Ross McCallum on the bench, who Ross would naturally be maybe considered one that would start normally. But I have to say, James Graham has been excellent at times during the early part of pre-season, and indeed last week when he came on, and James deserves to start anyway. So, but yeah, there'll be different decisions we have to consider this season that wasn't always there last. In fact, wasn't there last season. So it does make the team selection more challenging. That's for sure.
You mentioned Ross, and obviously this would be his second full season in the Lowland League. I know he was away in Holland in a match. Do we know what's happening? Or?
I don't know what's happening in that one, and it's back to any player that might still be in consideration for going loan, or that might still be a conversation. Whilst the conversation takes place, they still fit in what we do, and if they're available for selection, then that's something we would consider until such time as that changes.
Just wanted to ask you about Robbie Ure. Thought he was really good again tonight. Fourth goal, we seen him getting in behind and seen a couple of great turns in the first half. How happy are you with his development into a complete sort of striker that you're looking for?
He's developing really well. Robbie's got a lot of traits that's really appealing as a number 9. But I also think he can play just off that area as well, which he's done at different points over the last maybe 18 months or so anyway. So when I look at Robbie, I see somebody that links the game really well. We do challenge him to get himself into more goal scoring situations. But I thought what was really good about the fourth goal was his awareness once he got himself into that position to see that the cutback option was a better option rather than going to finish himself as well. But that is Robbie. He is quite an unselfish type player, but he must be a handful to play against, I would imagine, and even play against senior centre backs. He's got a frame that can manage that.
Just the last, I don't know if you, and it was just last thing I was going to say to you was, even just sitting amongst the fans, like the excitement naturally comes for the strikers, Lovelace and your players watching them for the first time. It's been a long time since Rangers produced a number 9. Not looking for you to put pressure on them, but is that one of the most difficult positions to really break into the first team, and that you need to put a lot of work in because you've got to be a complete player to get there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of areas in the first team can be the hardest players to go and get young players into there quite quickly. So that's why it's good when you look at Robbie, you look at Zach, we were trying, they're 9s, but if we can try and help educate them, understand that maybe playing off a side at different points, or playing just maybe as a kind of left 10 or a 10, then that's something that I think will help maybe open potentially doors a little bit sooner than what it might be if we're restricting to say they're only number 9. But I go back to it again, what I said about Zach and Robbie fits the same bill. Both are very open-minded, and they're happy to challenge themselves and ask questions and learn different roles, and both have had opportunities in pre-season to be close to the first team as well. So that gives them a little bit of a understanding what it looks like beyond obviously the B team, and hopefully it'll give them a wee bit of an edge to push themselves closer to that as soon as they can.
So is that something, sorry David, is that something you expect to see a wee bit more of? Because I've spoken to Robert before, and I've obviously spoken to Zach, and they both come across really conscientious of their position, but also being able to diversify that. So is that something we'll see a wee bit more throughout the season? Robbie and Zach kind of interchanging positions and try to kind of move about? Yeah,
possibly, but as I said at the start, that's something we'll consciously make decisions on, even the starting shape of the team, and maybe some little tweaks of how we want to try and attack, so that we can challenge the players and also get the best out of what their talents are as well. So it's good for us as well. We enjoy it as coaches to try and think differently at different points, but as long as players are open-minded and they're happy to learn. But one of the things we said to them before the game, we've asked them to do something different, so if there's something that they find challenging, it sits on us as coaches, because we've asked them to do something that's a bit different from normal, and our job's then to guide them and help them, and when things become challenging, then we can look ideally if we can do it in the game and work it in those scenarios, then great. If it's something in terms of analysis later on in the next given day, then that's our job as well. But we accept that challenge. We always talk about being open-minded, but sometimes it's coach's responsibility, sometimes it's and we'll do that tactically. Sometimes we'll challenge the players if we talk about the gaps between the top and the bits with the loose with the touches, we'll challenge the players to push their own standards, because they're good enough to go and do that.
Connor Young and Zach Lovelace both opened their scoring in the Lowland League tonight. How much does it do for their development just to get their open their accounts?
Individually, they must feel really good about themselves. That's for sure, because when you're a forward player, you want to have an attacking threat. You want to have an impact, a contribution, and obviously the two of them doing that, it certainly does help their belief. And obviously we'll sit down and go forward again. Connor fits that bill as well. We're talking about different areas of the pitch. Connor's also came to us trying to learn how we want to play, and he'll try to find areas in the pitch that fits his talents best. But if I'm them, I'm absolutely feeling good about having an impact in tonight's performance, that's for sure.
Continuing with the strikers, how do you go about picking your right sort of combination? Obviously you've got a lot of options out there, so how do you go about, is it to do with the opposition or is it more suiting each other?
That's a $1 million question. I have to say it's not an easy one. We have got a lot of talent in that area of the pitch. We'll just look at it as a game by game basis. We will look at individuals and where they're at, what they've been, what levels they've been achieving throughout the previous weeks. But yeah, we might at times make a conscious decision based on just looking at an individual that maybe hasn't been played as frequently, and try and find ways to fit them into those moments and opportunities as well. So, but add to that, if the first team are starting to show interest in some of the players, then they might challenge us as well at different points, because we've got to provide that link as best we possibly can. So there's all different scenarios that might be presented, and let's just hope everyone is available, and that challenge that for us is going to be there every week.
Keeping with Connor Young, so obviously he scored the 4th goal. It was very much a team goal. That must feel very pleasing to see. It's almost straight off the training ground.
An excellent goal, because we had a lot of pressure on the full back area, and you look at Lewis Budd, who's lifted the ball over there, kind of right side of the pitch to go and attack on our left, and that's where we wanted Robbie Fraser to provide our width on the left hand side. But by doing that, then that leaves space for going to attack behind their full back, and Robbie did that very, very well. And just like I spoke about, I think the awareness and the ability to go and beat his defender, then find the cut back for Connor, and the bit we spoke to Connor about as well, when we're in those attacking positions, because his probably biggest goal scoring threat tends to be from distance. He's excellent in those areas, but we challenge him as well that sometimes it's right to get in that 6 yard area and get the tap ins. They're equally just as good, and I'm delighted from tonight.
We talked about the Rangers B team supplementing the first team squad with young talent. How do you go about picking your sort of tactics or formation, or even lineups? Do you try and pick it so that players can best showcase what they can do for the first team, or do you make sure that it suits whoever you're going to play tonight? Or?
I think it's both. I think it's everything. We can't, we're a B team, so we have to be absolutely aware of what first team are doing, so that because we're developing players for that level as best we can to that level, so we have to create an awareness. And just like I spoke about, I think 1 or 2 tactical tweaks, which won't be massive, similar to what the first team would do, to try and challenge our players to adapt, which is key. You have to be a little bit adaptable and be able to go into different ways of playing, and ask them to do slightly different things within that. So that'll be ongoing.
Just the last one. You touched on Lewis Budd there. He pulled off some amazing saves. How crucial is his sort of ability with the ball at his feet?
Well, first of all, I think what to say is, because obviously Bud was disappointed last week with the first free kick, but it just shows you that he has a good goalkeeper, and we know that, and that's why the disappointment of last week's first goal, he'll feel that because he knows it's something he can do better. But tonight, when he was called upon, I'm not surprised with some of the saves he pulled off, because that's a natural instinct for him to go and do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Cheers, David.